Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 79. My name is Victor Vasquez. Thank you so much for joining me on another movie discussion and breakdown. What we're going to do on this week's episode is like we always do, right? We're going to be talking about a new film that just came out on streaming or in theaters, give you my pros and cons, and then decide whether it is timeless, at least in my personal opinion. Before we jump into this week's movie, though, I did want to announce that the Timeless Movie Podcast is finally on Spotify. That is right. Maybe you're listening to this new episode right now on Spotify. If you are, thank you. But finally made the move. It took me long enough. Most of the episodes have just been on YouTube. I'm just way more comfortable using YouTube over the last couple of years. But I thought, you know what? Got to expand this a little bit more. So the episodes all up to 79 are now on Spotify and basically moving forward as well. So definitely take a listen on Spotify if you prefer listening there. Also, we'll try to venture out into other platforms for podcasts like Apple Podcasts or Amazon Music or wherever else you guys like to listen to it. I'm most likely going to try to upload episodes of the Timeless Movie Podcast there. Again, exciting stuff. Now, let's go in and start trying to get into the mindset of wrangling some tornadoes. That is right. This week, we're going to be talking about Twisters. Twisters actually stars Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar-Jones and is directed by Lee Isaac Chung. Super excited to want to check this movie out. I started seeing trailers early on in 2024, maybe even as late as 2023. And I was kind of curious, like, is this going to be a sequel? Is this like more of a reboot? You know, how is it connected to the original film? Very curious in regards to those kind of thoughts. I had seen the original Twister. We had it on VHS. I think it came out in 1996. And I really enjoyed it. It was one of those movies, again, that's very much like a disaster type of a film. And it just, all this craziness. And they made the Twister and tornadoes feel like a monster, kind of like Jaws or something of that kind of extent. But now we are in 2024. This is now for an entirely new audience. So let's go ahead and break this movie down now that we got to check it out on opening night. So, my thoughts on Twister are, this movie was awesome. I enjoyed it. This is, I think, a prime example as to a movie that is designed for the movie theaters. The sound design is incredible because you're trying to capture the wind, the rain, and the chaos of these tornadoes and these twisters in the film. And they nailed it in this film. So, really good stuff that they were able to highlight. The visuals are just unbelievably realistic. I'm pretty sure the team that kind of made these types of visual effects for the Twisters must have captured, again, either real life Twisters that were occurring and kind of mixed it with some visual effects just to make them a little bit scarier or a little bit bigger. But all of this stuff was just filmed so well. Not only that, but there were some really cool action scenes as well as some really good emotional moments throughout the film as well. A lot of different types of stuff that occurs, kind of showing the disaster and the chaos that these twisters, end up causing on the different cities that are within the film. So the film kind of takes place in Oklahoma. And to kind of give everybody a general synopsis of Twisters, it revolves around the main protagonist, played by Daisy Edgar-Jones. She ends up playing the character of Kate. Kate is well-versed and she had majored in meteorology. She knows all about different types of patterns within the weather, but she's also, and I'm going to kind of coin this, I feel like nobody's said this yet. Again, maybe millions of people already said it, but in the film, she's almost like a tornado whisperer. She knows what areas are the best. There could be clouds starting to set up, different types of patterns occurring in the sky, and she knows exactly what moment they're about to form and then which ones might be even bigger than other twisters that might form around the city of Oklahoma that they're in. So Kate in this film, what she's trying to do, even though she has studied meteorology, she is not afraid of these tornadoes and twisters, but what she does want to do is she wants to find ways in order to try to reduce the intensity of a tornado and maybe even eventually try to collapse one so that it doesn't destroy homes, it doesn't destroy families and take family members away from each other. So she has this purpose of trying to protect her city of where she grew up in Oklahoma. She's also paired with Tyler Owens. He is the tornado wrangler in this film, and Tyler Owens is played by Glenn Powell. both of them together, Kate and Tyler, with their skills in regards to knowing when tornadoes might occur, how dangerous they can be, they basically try to work together and scientifically try to break down what is the best strategy in order to try to reduce this intensity. How can we protect more and more people as we go along? That way nobody gets hurt with these types of tornadoes. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I really enjoyed that they just try to find a way, not just to make this like a, hey, the twister is the monster and we're just trying to escape and survive. No, in this film, they're trying to come up with scientifically a way to, how can we reduce this tornado so that it does not have these crazy types of winds and ends up wreaking havoc around cities? How can we do our best in order to stop this type of a monster that ends up occurring and ends up just destroying homes left and right? So really enjoyed that kind of piece of it. And again, the tornadoes are freaking epic. Every single one that comes out kind of has a life of its own. Every tornado that you see ends up looking a little bit different. You even see twin tornadoes coming out as well. So really cool stuff. Overall, I had a fun time watching Twisters. It was just such a great kind of, almost like a callback. It kind of felt like the OG one. Granted, I haven't seen the original Twister in years now, but it kind of just gives you that same feel where there's still a lot of cool technology that's being introduced into the film, but it still feels very grounded, like, hey, this definitely happens in the Midwest and all these areas within the United States. So really crazy stuff. But overall, had a fun time at the theater watching Twisters. I think this is a great segue to kind of move into some of the pros and cons that I had about the movie, just to kind of break down a little bit more about my mindset after I left the theaters. So first pro that I really enjoyed about this film, Twisters, was Kate's PTSD that she was kind of facing in the first and second act of the movie. Now, why does she have PTSD? Well, minor spoilers here for the beginning of the movie. So if you guys have not seen Twisters and you don't want to be spoiled, feel free to, jump back out of this video, watch the movie and then come back in. All right, hopefully that gives you guys enough time. But at the beginning of the movie, Kate is in college. She's trying to, once again, figure out ways in how she can reduce the intensity of these tornadoes, and she makes it her mission to try to do that with her friends and accomplish something that maybe has not been accomplished. What she ends up doing is that taking out her friends, they go out into the eye of the storm of a tornado, they try to reduce the intensity, and then all hell breaks loose. Their car gets wrecked, and she ends up losing 3 of her best friends, one of them being her boyfriend as well. And so she was basically traumatized. And what ends up happening is 5 years later, you have Kate as a meteorologist. She is away from Oklahoma. She actually moved to New York City, and she's trying to basically move on from trying to work with tornadoes and try to find a way to reduce that and just not think about it anymore, because every time she thinks about it, she feels the guilt of bringing her friends onto this project and ends up costing their lives. Now, I'm not saying that I like that she has PTSD. That's not what I'm saying. What I enjoyed, though, is the concept of the main protagonist having these flashbacks, having these types of recurring nightmares where every time she gets close to a tornado or twister, she gets reminded of what happened that day when she tried to test out these theories of reducing the intensity of a tornado. And so as you see her go through the film, she goes back to Oklahoma. She's asked to help on a special project from one of her friends, Javi, who's played by Anthony Ramos. And she's, again, doing it for the good of people, right? She wants to do it to help folks not lose their homes, not get everything destroyed and have to start from scratch. And so as she goes, she gets closer and closer to these tornadoes, and then she's not able to perform at her highest level. She's not able to pick up on her typical patterns that she normally has when she was a little bit younger. And again, she just is in fear of these tornadoes because of what they did to her friends. And so really cool stuff. I just enjoyed that kind of a concept of the main character having this kind of flashbacks and trauma that they ended up facing because of a type of terror that occurred at the beginning of the film. Really enjoyed how that all played out. And again, just makes you connect a little bit more to the main character to kind of feel like, hey, look, they're struggling, but you know why they're struggling. It's because of all these horror that occurred on a project when they tried to, again, reduce the intensity and severity of a tornado. Second pro for me was the technology that was used in the film, as well as even the science that was being used to explain how they were going to reduce this intensity or collapse a twister or tornado. I just found it super fascinating. Now, did I understand on a scientific term what they were talking about? Absolutely not. I had no clue what the heck they were saying. They were using these words that I had no clue. Again, just way too high for my, technical knowledge in my mind. So I had no clue what they were kind of describing on the specific scientific piece of it. However, it was believable. And I was able to suspend my disbelief to kind of believe like, hey, yeah, these guys, they're masters in meteorology. And when I say them, I mean Tyler Owens and Kate. Both of them have studied it. They know exactly what they need to do when they face these types of situations. So to me, I just really enjoyed that kind of aspect of how they were just breaking it down and making it very scientific. I also want to, again, call out the type of technology that was used. In the first Twisters, you had this type of technology where they were just trying to use it to track the tornado and twister to give a city a couple more minutes and more buffer in order to not get, again, lose their family members, have anybody killed. In this film, again, the technology that was used was much more advanced. What they were trying to do is actually get a 3D imagery of a tornado in order to understand the power that it had. And then hopefully with those types of imageries, they can kind of get a better feel as to how they can eventually destroy one or reduce it to just not have a big impact. So again, just that kind of a thought process and making it more modern made me appreciate the film a lot more. And again, I just really enjoyed that aspect of it. Another pro that I had was actually the way that they showed the aftermath of the tornado and how it just left destruction all over the place. Now, in the first film in 1996 for Twister, they showed the destruction of it. But here, what I loved most is that they actually showed that it can hurt people. In this film, when a tornado or twister was going through and they were, in that storm, they would come out with cuts, with dirt, their hair was messed up, their clothes was messed up. They just made it look like, hey, this is a real deal. I really enjoy that the Twisters added a stake to this film, right? Because now that you know, like, hey, yeah, well, our main characters aren't going to die, but they might barely survive and they might get hurt. Something that might get lodged into their body. You never know what can happen. And so I really enjoyed that, just adding a little bit more stakes to this film. Last but not least, one of my other favorite things about this movie was the team chemistry. So Tyler Owens was kind of a YouTube star in the film, and he had a whole gang of folks on his side. Somebody recording him, somebody working on a drone, somebody just, scientifically working up the calculations, all this different stuff. But that whole group dynamic was so freaking fun. Every team member had something to do. Everybody was able to, again, have a unique little part in order to help Tyler Owens wrangle a specific type of tornado, get into the center of it, and just have a good time. And so it was really cool to see. And I guess I'm a sucker for those types of team tropes, especially when there's just a great connection, right? You have films like Guardians of the Galaxy, all these different types of misfits, but together they make such a great and awesome team. Now, I'm not saying that Tyler Owens and the team here are the same level as Guardians of the Galaxy, but just hopefully trying to throw out that message of that analogy that, hey, the team dynamic just makes this film so much more fun, and you just can't wait to see all of them interact with each other. So Tyler Owens and his whole crew of tornado wranglers was one of my other pros in this film. All right, let's go ahead and move on to some of the cons that I had about Twisters. I only have one, and it really just has to deal with the writing of some of the dialogue, as well as some of the delivery of the lines in the film. It didn't take me out of the movie, but I feel like it did subdue how I felt with some of the emotional moments that occurred and some of the scenes that either Kate or Tyler or anybody else was within Twisters. Just some of it just fell flat for me. Again, it mostly just a nitpick and a personal thing on my side, but there was times when certain characters would just say stuff and I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, or sometimes they're in a specific discussion or an argument and they just deliver it in a very flat way. And so it kind of didn't hit home with me. So that was probably just the biggest con, either the writing just being very simplistic or the delivery of some of the lines by certain characters just didn't hit really hard and didn't hit me like in that kind of a feeling where, oh man, yeah, I definitely understand what they're going through. There's a couple times that happened in the movie, which is unfortunate, but once again, it did not take me away from my experience of Twisters. That's about it when it comes to cons. Now let's go back to some positives. I want to call out some of my favorite performances and moments. Let's start with performances. This one was tough. Daisy Edgar-Jones and Glenn Powell were the two main protagonists of this film. Each one brought a great aspect, and they were both very different, right? You have Tyler Owens, who is the charismatic guy. Then you have Daisy Edgar-Jones, who's more of the kind of grounded character. She's so knowledgeable. She understands patterns from different types of twisters and tornadoes that might occur. And so each one plays off very well with each other when they're in the same scenes. But if I had to choose one, I would have to go with Tyler Owens, played by Glenn Powell. The charisma that this guy has is just incredible. Every time he was on screen, I was just laughing at what he was saying or the different types of facial expressions he was making. But what was so cool is that not only was he kind of like that funny guy and the charismatic guy that everybody was looking up to, but he also was able to match the different types of levels of scientific and knowledge and patterns of tornadoes that Kate was having. Because Kate, she was just on another level when it came to where certain tornadoes might occur and how she's able to locate them and her instincts. Now, Tyler was not on that level with Kate, but he was the closest person that was able to communicate, and they were actually able to share a lot of different types of chemistry and connection when they would talk about tornadoes. So really good stuff by Glenn Powell. He had my favorite performance in Hitman, and now he's got my favorite performance in Twister. He is on fire this year so far. So congrats to Glenn Powell for my favorite performance. Now, favorite moment of the movie actually occurs towards, I think, the second act. What ends up happening is Kate and Tyler are at a rodeo. They're starting to kind of get a little bit closer in their relationship. And in this rodeo, what ends up happening is that a twister comes out of nowhere, and they basically have to try to run, try to save people, save as many folks as they can. But what's so cool about this scene is that it's in the night, and so you can't see the twister until there's like lightning or there's electricity poles just kind of being yanked off the ground. And there's just so much great imagery as they're going, and the chaos that ensues is nuts. But that whole scene was awesome. Kate and Tyler ended up having to hide in a pool. They had to try to hold on to different types of bars. And what was so cool about that scene as well is, again, going back to that first pro about Kate's PTSD and her trauma, she ends up kind of having to hold on, and she's with a mother and daughter, and you just hear the mother say, "It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right." And she ends up getting reminded and gets a flashback of that was like the last thing she heard her boyfriend say before he ended up getting taken by a twister. And so you could just see the pain on her face. You see the tear that she has. And so just a great scene overall. I freaking like that scene. Again, because they make that twister look so badass, but also because of the pain and the trauma that Kate still faces. Now, this is a great transition into my favorite shot of the movie. It's actually going to be the shot where you see lightning, and then you see in the dark sky a huge tornado coming towards the rodeo. That shot was so impressive. I freaking loved it. Something about a dark sky, and then you see something light it up, whether it be, again, lightning, whether it be electricity, whether it be anything that kind of light up the dark sky, and you just see something there. It looks so freaky and so scary, but I love that shot. So in that rodeo scene, when they see the lightning kind of pop off in the sky and you see a huge tornado coming their way for a split second, that was my favorite shot of the movie. All right, let's go ahead and move on to whether I consider this film timeless. Is Twisters a movie that I can rewatch over and over and over again? In my personal opinion, I will say that Twisters is not timeless for me. Although I had a lot of positive things to say, after I left the theater, there wasn't really much that kind of made me go like, oh, heck yeah, I need to rewatch this or this scene or this scene. It was more of like, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. The tornadoes looked super cool. I loved the way that they broke it down scientifically, but there wasn't anything else that kind of made me kind of really excited or really go crazy about like, man, I can't wait to maybe bring my mom and dad to watch this one. Or, hey, I can't wait to invite this person to watch it. It was just a fun time and a great experience to watch it in theaters. But Again, nothing really stood out to me in regards to making me add this to my rotation and want to watch this over and over and over again. Now, I definitely can see myself rewatching this in the future. Maybe down the road like that, if like there's something in my mind kind of makes me feel like, yeah, I want to watch a disaster movie. Let's go ahead and check out Twisters. I could definitely see that, but at the moment, I will not add this to my timeless rotation to watch it every other year or every year. It's just not that kind of a movie for me. I still appreciated what it was trying to say in regards to, again, how destructive these twisters can be and how we have to just find ways to help people when these disasters occur. But again, at the moment, not a timeless movie for me. But what do you guys think? Did you think that Twisters is timeless? If you do, let me know down below. Would love to interact, get your thoughts on Twisters. Did you like the original one better or did you like this one a lot better? Let me know down below. Now, although it's not a timeless movie for me, I will say though, I would definitely recommend, if you have the chance, go check this out in theaters. This is, like I said at the beginning, a film that is designed for the theater experience. You need the surround sound. You need the big speakers. If you have a chance, go watch it in Dolby Cinema. That's how I watched it, and my seats were shaking as every time a tornado would come out, and just the sound of the wind, everything sounded impeccable. So if you have a chance, again, I would actually still recommend you guys watch this in theaters. It's still a good watch. The reason I say I wouldn't want folks to wait for on streaming is because of the fact that, when you watch it at home, you're not going to have the same type of surround sound. It's not going to be as big of a screen, so you might miss a lot of the type of details. So if you have a chance, I definitely recommend to watch this one in theaters. It is such a fun time. All right, everybody, that is it for episode number 79 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. My name is Victor Vasquez. I appreciate you for staying all the way through and listening to my breakdown of Twisters. It was such a fun movie to check out. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we're going to be talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. That is right, the first film of Marvel from 2024. Super excited to be talking about that one. So if you're interested and you like Marvel and you want to check out what my thoughts were on that film, definitely come back next week when that episode drops. All right, everybody, appreciate you guys listening. Have a great rest of your week. And remember, if you feel it, chase it.